Yes, it's a little less formal because I think we have some returning guests here today. But hello, everyone. My name is Brendan Fowler. I'm one of the education account managers here with Visual Sound. Thank you for joining us today. Before I pass it off to Corey on today's presentation on the asynchronous learning with the Smart uh, Learning Suite Online, just a reminder for those of you, I think you guys are all pretty comfortable at this point, but put your name and email address in the chat box. Mute your mic, and please mute your mic unless you have a question. Obviously, feel free to put a question in the chat or just unmute and ask away, and Corey will be happy to answer. But also, if you need anything else, just let us know. And thanks again for joining us. And Corey, take it away.
All right, thank you very much, Brendan. So as Brendan said, and as most of you know at this point, my name is Corey Freed. I am the educational consultant for Visual Sound. I am certified by both Google for Education and Microsoft for Education. And today's session is asynchronous and synchronous remote learning, specifically targeting math and science classrooms. So the reason I say math and science is because, as you know, there's a lot of differences in the nuances between teaching a STEM class and teaching a writing class. So today's session is math and science. And then if you come back on Wednesday, we're going to kind of focus in on those ELA and social studies skills that might be slightly different. So the sessions are going to be similar, but have those small nuances that are different between them. As I said before we started recording today, if you would like to pretend to be a student, you are more than welcome to log in to hellosmart.com and use my class ID, which is 120636. So the first thing I want to point out to you with asynchronous versus synchronous learning in Smart Learning Suite Online, what we are doing right now is synchronous. When you click on the person and you go here to lesson pacing, you're going to see teachers and students. If this is set to teacher pace, whatever the student is looking at has to be the same thing as the teacher. When I change my slides, your slide will change with me. If I set this to student pace, that is for asynchronous learning. And what happens with student paced is you have the opportunity to flip through the slides on your own, go at your pace, and then I, as the teacher, can just be talking over it. Or in the event of an activity, I have to be on that slide with you. So it would just tell you your teacher is not currently presenting this slide. So those are the major differences between synchronous and asynchronous. So what we're going to do now is we're going to just look at some stuff. So again, just the agenda for today is specifically looking at math and science subject areas. We're going to talk about the how-tos, and then I'll give you some resources at the end. Skip that slide because I already gave you my class code. And so we're going to start with a shout out. For those of you that haven't seen shout outs, this is needed to be in synchronous mode. So if you remember, I just talked about certain things would say waiting for your teacher. This is one of those things. So when I hit start, it's going to give you on your device a text box. What I want you to do is mention what you can't do without a physical whiteboard. Like, what is something you think you can't do online because you don't have a physical whiteboard or chalkboard in front of you? All right, so someone just wrote, I wrote demonstrate to demonstrate how to do this, but I see somebody wrote jot down new ideas quickly. So yeah, you can't write stuff really quickly, but you can. So if I was to come in here onto a smart notebook online, I can take my stylus and I could write on it. And while I'm screen sharing, you would see it in that real time. Someone else wrote live demos and sharing. Again, that is something that we can do virtually using screen sharing and styluses on a virtual whiteboard. Because I noticed that the last person that filled something out actually wrote using a virtual whiteboard. So just because you don't have that physical device in front of you, that physical whiteboard, that physical chalkboard, we're not living in the 1950s anymore. And everything is on the computer now. You just have to know where to look for it. And that's part of the reason we've been doing these webinars, is to help you be more comfortable finding the resources and using them with your students. All right, so we're going to move on now. And we're going to talk about the power of a blank page, because as I already mentioned, you don't need to have a physical whiteboard. I can come here with my stylus, pick a color of ink, and I could write to you. with my terrible handwriting. So if I just drew that atom on the board, can anyone tell me what I just drew with my terrible handwriting?
Water.
I drew water, 1 hydrogen, 2 oxygen, and right here, I just demonstrated that. Now, if I wanted to do it with the correct model, we would have our actual atoms connecting, sharing. I could actually be wrong about that model. It's been a while since I took basic chemistry, but just trying to show you the differences. Yes, George, you can come off of mute to ask your questions. You don't have to type question, please. Just come on off.
I understand from the last time how these slides were put into Smart, but I'm wondering, that shout out that you did, was that something you created in Smart, or was it originally in your slide when you put it in?
Excellent question. So to create the shout out, what I did, let me go back to the shout out. So what I did was I would come up here to the plus sign. I would, first of all, I'd go to the slide that I want it to follow. And then you click on this plus sign right here, and you just add a shout out activity. And that's how you would put it in after you convert the Google Slides to a Smart Learning Suite Online notebook.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. I am going to just delete that. I'll delete it after. You can't delete it from the live presentation. You got to go into the edit mode. So I'll delete that after, since I am sharing this out to people, just so it doesn't confuse you all. All right, so the next thing I'm going to show you is a YouTube video, because something that's really nice about Smart Learning Suite Online, and I'm not going to play the video right now just because I don't have Google Meet set up correctly to play audio. I have to change the settings to allow the audio to come through, but I'll hit play just so you can see the video. What's really nice about Smart Learning Suite Online is whenever you share a video from YouTube, it gets rid of the advertisements before the video. So this right here is an example of a hook, because what we're doing is we're looking at a video of Keenan, I'm missing up my 2 actors from Nickelodeon, looking at this adorable octopus. And then what's going to happen is we're going to go to that next slide.
That's neither. That's Tracy Morgan.
That was Tracy Morgan.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. All right. Thank you, Brendan, for letting me know that it has been a while since I've been watching SNL. I really thought that was the other actor.
He's been up for a while too, so you're covered either way.
All right. So anyway, that hook of watching him with the octopus then brings us into the next slide, which is a math question. It says the octopus just arrived at his new home, and when they put him in the aquarium, the water was raised by 1/2 inch. How can we figure out the volume of the octopus? So now, right now, this is a stagnant slide. Nobody's writing on this slide. It's just typed in there. Now, me as the teacher, I can now, while I'm talking to my students in real time, come to my stylus, and I could start saying, well, the length is equal to 5 inches or 5 feet, and the width. And I got to figure out why my stylus isn't writing very neatly. I apologize for my terrible handwriting. I'm having more luck with my mouse than I was with my stylus, so I apologize for the bad handwriting. But I can go in there and write the length and the width of the aquarium, figure that out. If I wanted this to be for the students, I can come up here and I could turn this right now in front of you all into a worksheet so each student can work independently. So I'm going to delete my handwriting from it first by clicking the little reset button. And then I come up to my silhouette and I click turn it into an individual handout. When I turn it into an individual handout, it shows you students will appear here once they've connected and started the activity. So as soon as the first student opens up the assignment and starts writing, I'm going to see their name pop up on the screen. If I wanted to show all of you the blank one, all I would have to do is click teacher handout and it would come back to that blank slide. So because I did take this off of teacher paste, I'm going to put it back to teacher paste so it forces you all back to that same slide, make it a little faster for you to find it. And it's going to open up and you can just write on it. Now, what's really nice is the student tools does give the kids a text box a pen, and even an image. So if the kid has really bad handwriting, or if they don't have a stylus, they can start filling it out by typing and all this other stuff. And I'm just going to have my sample student do that. So Pat just said regarding sharing the videos, it's been kind of patchy in Google Meet. You would think because YouTube is owned by Google that it would work seamlessly with Google Meet, but you are not the first person to say that. I'm not going to lie. It is very glitchy. That is the reason why I didn't even bother trying to share the audio. Audio in Google Meet is still kind of in a beta testing mode. So this is George's. As you can see, George didn't type anything or write anything. If I click on my demo computer, you'll see that I wrote length is 6 feet and width is 5 feet, just to show you that the kids can use that text box in there. To finish answering Pat's question, yes, the YouTube videos are glitchy, but the nice thing about it is right now, if I have that YouTube video and I'm on Teacher Pace, my students can actually hit play on their own and watch the video. So it is possible that if you're going to show that YouTube video, you can just say to the kids, all right, the video is 1 minute long. When you're done watching it, come back to the Google Meet, and the kids could all just watch the video independently. So that is an option if you are using Google Meet. Now, if you are using Microsoft Teams or if you're using Zoom, audio is not as big of an issue. It is definitely a Google Meet issue, and it is known. It's just not something that we really have a fix for right now. All right, so we are going to move on. And now we're going to go into a bit of a chemistry lesson. So in this chemistry lesson, we see balancing chemical equations, and we have nitrogen, or 2 nitrogens and 2 hydrogen equals nitrogen, hydrogen 3. And it's asking you to figure out how many things you're going to need because you got to balance this out. So again, I'm not a chemistry teacher. This slide was provided to me by someone from SMART as a good example, but I do know that this has to do with the common denominators, finding the least common multiple. So if I have to get 1 nitrogen for every 3 hydrogen, how many am I going to need of each? Well, I am going to need at least 1 nitrogen and 1 hydrogen. And for each 1 nitrogen, I am going to need 1.5 hydrogen. So that means that I will need 1 nitrogen and 3 hydrogen in order for that chemical equation to be balanced. So as the teacher, I would go through this. I would talk about it with my students. I'd probably show more work on the screen as I talked. And then what I would do is I would bring the students to the next page, which is a handout, and they would practice this on their own. So if you look at this teacher handout, it is an image of a PDF. So if you don't know how to create a JPEG of a PDF, I could definitely help you with that on how to convert it. I believe we had that in one of our other webinar sessions, but I can make a shorter video that specifically talks about it. And all you do is you turn that PDF into an image, and then you put the image onto your slide. Now the students can come in here and they could write on the slide, fill it out. When I, as the teacher, go back to my list of students, which I can pull down from here, I again don't see any students writing. Brendan, you were supposed to be my fake student so that I had some examples. Come on, man. All right, I see Pat just opened the file up and George just opened the file up. So now, as you can see, you're starting to see your students are opening the file, doing the work. And if I wanted to click on an individual student's name as the teacher, it would pull up their work and I could see what they wrote. So if I click on Brendan's, he's going to just scribble something on his page so that we can see something on the page. Meanwhile, I will go look at George because he is my star pupil. He wrote the number 4. Pat wrote, I don't know about doing this work, too long since chemistry. No worries, Pat. I mean, this is just to show you the process. And that's why I even said to Brendan, just scribble on the page. That way, when I pulled it up, you could see what the student work would look like.
Corey.
Yes.
Sorry. When you went to this slide, which was an activity,
Yes.
why didn't you have to go up to the people and make it like that, like you did the last one I asked about?
So the last one was created in real time in front of you. This one was created when I first converted it over. So before today's webinar began, I converted the slides over and then I went through the slides to make them interactive. I purposely left the other one static so that I can show you, hey, if you change your mind last minute, you can turn it into a worksheet without going back to the edit mode.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. And Brendan, no need to apologize on your worksheet. I was just messing with you.
I know, I'm just sorry.
All right. So the next thing I want to show you is something that is almost, I'd say almost about 2 weeks now in Smart Learning Suite Online, and that is the infinite cloner. So just like in Smart Notebook, you can infinitely clone something. So let's say you're teaching a primary grade. So this is no longer high school chemistry. This is second grade. And you could say to the kids, all right, I want you to make all of the multiples of 3 green and all the multiples of 10 orange. Well, every time you drag the little counter over, it is infinite. So it will just keep going. And you can drag it as many times as you want. I'm not going to go ballistic on this, but you can just drag those over and it is infinite, which means you could theoretically have a billion of those green squares and they will just keep coming out. So again, that's just more of a primary school example. You're probably not going to be using a hundreds chart with high school kids, but you can still use that infinite cloner as a technique of working with your students. So the last thing we're going to talk about today is some game-based learning. Now, when you are working asynchronously, you are not going to see anything your students are doing on this game-based learning. If you're working synchronously, you're still not going to see it. But because we're kind of talking right now, I could say to my students, all right, I want you to go do this. They do the activity, and then you could say to them, all right, which question did you find the most interesting? Or did you have trouble with something? The first sample we have is a match 'em. And again, this was created by someone from Smart, and I actually love what they did because rather than just match the number to a number, they kind of made it a little more tricky. So not only do the kids need to know their multiplication facts, they need to know months and days and dozens and all that stuff. So if the students were doing this game, they would be playing on their own. And even if like George is playing right now or Brendan is playing right now, I as the teacher don't see that. I only see the screen that I have in front of me. But I'm just going to show you this again. So if I have 7 times 3, I know that's 21. And I know that 3 weeks has 21 days. And that's how this one would match. So again, this is kind of letting the kids practice with the 2 skills. So Pat just said, how do you create the infinite cloner? She's done it in Smart Notebook, but not in Smart Learning Suite Online. So Pat, I will show you that in about 30 seconds because I'm going to have to go back into the edit mode to show you that. So I will show that before the end of this. I promise. And if I forget, remind me. Come off of mute and yell at me, say, hey, Corey, you promised you were going to show me this. In fact, I'm going to skip through some slides. We had a couple more games for you guys. I want to show you response because this is one that has to be done synchronously, but response is one of the only activities that will give you actual information about your students' responses. So when you do response, after your student, and this, we don't have a sample of this, just the screenshot, it shows me how many students answered the questions, gives the live results right there. At the end of those live results, on the bottom of the screen, you will actually see an option that says export to Excel. And what's really nice about the exporting to Excel is you're going to get a color-coded spreadsheet. Any answer that was correct will be green. Any answer that was wrong will be red. And you'll see this. You'll see 2 different things from the students' responses. You're going to see both a point value and a percentage. So if you wanted to give this as like a quiz for your students and then put it into your grade book, it doesn't matter if you grade by percentages or you grade by real point value. You will be able to see both of those pieces of information in the Excel spreadsheet for all your students. So that is why I wanted to make sure to show you the response. And then Pat, because you asked already, I actually had a slide called how do I do that? So now I'm going to go back into the edit mode. And that was actually really random that I had that slide in there. I was not a premonition. I swear that was just there. So I go up here to edit, and this is how you will do the infinite cloning in a slide. So the first thing you want to do is just put whatever you're going to clone. So I am going to select an image from my computer, and I don't actually have any good images here. Let's go with the Visual Sound logo. Why not? So I have my Visual Sound logo inputted, and if I come to the arrow right next to it, Infinite Cloner is going to be right up here. Once you hit that Infinite Cloner, you'll get the little Infinite ID image. Couldn't think of the word again. I click Finish Editing, and now when I'm on that slide, I can drag and drag and drag and put as many Visual Sound logos on the slide that I want. Little overkill, but got to get the brand name out there, right? All right, so the last thing to show you is the resource page. The Smart specific resources is bit.ly/visualsound033. That resource page was made for us by Smart, so it has a lot of great YouTube tutorials, PDF references, and other information specific to Smart Learning Suite Online and all the things we've been talking about in these webinars. The past resources are for everything we've done since March. You can find all the YouTube videos. Today's video will be uploaded probably by the end of today, definitely by tomorrow. You'll also see the schedule for upcoming webinars. As of right now, the only upcoming webinar is on Wednesday, when we will do a session very similar today, only specifically looking at ELA and social studies skills. So rather than math formulas and graphing and all of that, we will look more at editing, writing, and highlighting, and being more of a vocabulary type of lesson things. And then the YouTube playlist is all of the archived videos. I will make sure to put all those links in the chat box in about 30 seconds, but let me go to the question slide. Actually, I'll leave it on the resource slide because obviously you guys know my personal contact information if you need it at this point. So I'm going to go into the chat box and type these links so that way you have them as a hyperlink if you need them. And if you'd like to ask questions or come off of mute, please feel free. You could also type the questions if you don't feel comfortable coming off of mute.